I paid off $20,000 of credit card debt on a modest income. Not because I got paid more, but because I was finally able to stick to a budget. The thing most people get wrong about budgeting is that it feels like a punishment, like something you do when you messed up. That's the furthest thing from the truth. A budget is just a realistic model for your money. And in this video, I'm going to walk you through the exact 5-step system I used so you can build yours in under 20 minutes, even if budgeting never stuck with you before. Make sure to stay to the end because the last step is the reason most budgets fall apart after week 1 and almost nobody talks about it. So here's what we're going to cover. First, how to find the one number your entire budget is built on. We're going to break that number into simple spending buckets. We're going to track your spending without overcomplicating it, and the categories that give you clarity when something goes off track. And finally, the 2-layer review habit that actually keeps a budget alive. And at the end, I'll show you how I run the exact same system. Let's get into it. Step 1 is one number, your real monthly take-home pay. Not your salary, not your gross income, and not your best month. What actually lands in your bank account after taxes, insurance, and everything else is taken out. That is the number your budget has to be built on, because budgeting is not about being optimistic, it's about being accurate. And if you're salaried and get a consistent paycheck, this part's pretty straightforward. You just use your actual take-home pay each month. If your income changes month to month, maybe you do freelance or you're hourly or have a variable income, use your lowest recent month as your baseline. If you have multiple income streams, pick your lowest recent month as your baseline for all of them and add it up to get your number. And that might sound conservative, but that's the point. It makes your budget safer and it keeps you from planning around money that may not show up. So before you do anything else, answer one question. What number actually hits my account every month? And that is your starting line. Step 2 is where you give that money a job. And we're not going to start with 40 categories in a giant spreadsheet because that's exactly what makes budgeting feel impossible for most people. Instead, we'll start with 5 broad buckets. Fixed expenses are the predictable, mostly unchanging bills. Rent or mortgage, car payment, insurance premiums, subscriptions, minimum debt payments. These are the things you've committed to regardless of what else happens during the month. Variable necessities are things you have to spend on, but the amount shifts. Groceries, gas, utilities, medical costs. You can't cut them out entirely, but you do have some control over how much you spend. Discretionary is flexible spending. Restaurants, coffee, entertainment, shopping, hobbies. This is where most of the overspending happens, and it's also the most powerful lever you have when you want to accelerate your goals. Kids and pets covers childcare, school costs, activities, vet bills, pet supplies. If this bucket doesn't apply to you, you can just skip it entirely and redistribute that percentage toward discretionary or savings. If it does apply, keeping it separate makes it easier to see what it actually costs instead of it quietly disappearing inside other categories. Savings and goals is not an afterthought. It's a bucket with a job, same as everything else. Emergency fund, debt payoff, beyond minimum payments, a car fund, vacation, whatever your real goals are. This money has a destination. If you don't have debt right now, then fold the debt allocation into your savings bucket and keep moving. Now, when you're first setting your buckets, you might not know how much to put where. So here is a rough framework that works well as a starting point. 35% fixed expenses, 15% variable necessities, 20% discretionary, 10% kids and pets, and 20% savings and goals. To make that concrete, let's say you take home $3,500 a month. Fixed expenses will be $1,225, variable necessities $525, discretionary $700, kids and pets $350, savings and goals $700. These are not rules. They're reasonable targets based on a fairly typical budget. Your numbers may be different, and they should be. The 2 buckets worth paying the most attention to are discretionary spending and savings. The less you spend in one, the more you can put in the other, and that trade-off is where the real progress happens. Your first budget won't match this perfectly, and that's to be expected. Estimate based on what you spend over the past 1 to 3 months, and you can refine it from there. If you want more practical budgeting content with systems that actually work, then subscribe. That's exactly what this channel is for. Step 3 is where your budget stops being a plan and starts becoming useful. You need to actually track your transactions. Every time money goes out, it needs to be recorded somewhere. You have two basic options: manual tracking, which is like a spreadsheet, a notes app, paper notebook, whatever you will open and use. You can also use an app that does the logging for you. The tool matters a lot less than the habit. If a spreadsheet is what you'll stick with, then use a spreadsheet. If an app keeps you consistent, then use an app. What matters is that when money leaves your account, you know about it and it's recorded somewhere that you will look at. Because a budget you never look at is just a guess. You don't need a perfect dashboard. You need to be able to answer one question at any given point during the month. How much did I plan to spend, and how much have I actually spent? That single comparison kept up to date will already put you ahead of most people. Quick question: if budgeting has failed for you before, let me know how it broke. Was it setting it up, tracking consistently, or just not sticking with it after the first week? Drop it in the comments and I read every single one. Helps me know what to cover next. Step 4 is where your budget gets specific. Buckets give you the high level plan and categories tell you what's actually happening inside that plan. For example, inside variable necessities, you might have groceries, gas, utilities, and medical, while inside discretionary, you may have restaurants, coffee, streaming services, and clothing. Inside savings and goals, you might have an emergency fund, debt payoff fund, and a car maintenance fund. This level of detail does matter because if you overspend in a bucket, the category tells you where the problem is. The bucket tells you if you're over, and the category tells you why. That distinction matters more than it might sound. A lot of people just look at their spending and think they're bad with money, but usually the problem's more specific than that. Groceries might be fine, but eating out is the issue. Bills might be under control, but irregular expenses keep catching you off guard. Categories give you clarity, and clarity is what lets you fix things. Now, the one thing that trips people up early on is the irregular expenses, things that don't hit every month. Your car insurance might be paid every 6 months. Your water bill might come every quarter. A medical expense might be annual. If you do not plan for these, they feel like emergencies when they show up. The fix is simple. Take what you will know you will spend given the whole year, divide it by 12, and build that amount into your monthly budget as its own category. When the bill comes, the money's already sitting there waiting. This is called a rollover category. You're not spending that money every month, you're setting it aside every month so it's ready when you need it. This one habit alone removes a huge amount of financial stress. Step 5 is the one most people skip, and it's the reason most budgets fall apart. People think budgeting is something you set up at the beginning of the month and then leave it alone, but it's not. A good budget is a system you maintain, not a one-time document. Step 5 has 2 layers. Once a week, set aside 10-15 minutes, categorize your recent transactions, compare what you spent to what you plan to spend, and if a bucket's running hot, adjust now while you still have some room, and take a quick look at what's coming up before your next check-in. That's the weekly layer. It's not complicated, but it's the thing that keeps your budget from being a document you wrote once and then forgot about. If you wait until the end of the month, you're not budgeting anymore. You're just looking at what happened. But if you check in every week, you can make small corrections before they turn into big problems. At the end of each month, you go one level deeper. Look at how your money actually split across your buckets and compare it to what you planned. If your savings percentage is lower than you wanted, then that's the signal. Now look where the money went instead. Your first month will be rough and the numbers will be off, categories will be missing. That's supposed to happen. You're building a model with no historical data yet. Month 1 is just a draft. Month 2 is where the system actually starts working because now you have real data, and with real data, you can make a real plan. Here's what this looked like for me personally. After my first month using the system, I pulled up my budget and looked at my variable expenses, and they were running a little higher than I expected, closer to 30% of my take-home pay. Some of that was medical costs that I hadn't fully planned for. So I looked at where the levers were. What could actually change? I set a target and I wanted to bring my variable spending down and redirect it more towards savings. Not all at once, just a realistic shift that I could sustain over the next 6 months. And I built that into next month's budget. That is the monthly review. You're not beating yourself up over what went wrong. You're using what you learned to make the next month more accurate. This is the same system run inside the budget app that I made myself. Now, you don't need an app. A spreadsheet or manual works, but the app just makes it easier and faster to stay consistent, which is the actual goal. Onboarding sets up categories and accounts, and that part's already done, so I'm going to skip that here. Bank accounts are linked, and the transactions are auto-pulled via Plaid, so the only thing left to do is just categorize it. This is all fake data for the demo and not my real financial info. So the first thing I'm going to do is to set up my income bucket. Since I already have data from the previous month, what I'm going to do is I'm going to see how much I made, $4,202.71. Go to June, and I'm just going to set that bucket amount here. So that's the number every bucket gets measured against. As for the buckets, these are the 5 expense buckets: fixed costs, variable necessities, discretionary, kids and pets, savings and goals. You can set a planned amount on all of them in either a percentage or raw dollars. So for example, fixed costs, I know I want to be at 35%. So I can do custom 35 and save that, and you can see the budgeted expenses up here has changed, and the goal is to have your expected income minus your budgeted expenses equals $0. So we still have $2,731 left to assign. I'm going to go ahead and fill out these bucket numbers with the rough estimations I gave for percentages earlier in the video. Since my accounts are already linked up, all the transactions are automatically pulled and shown in this list here. I have the filter already set to this month because I want to see this month's transactions. And in order to do the weekly review, or if you just pop on every other day just to see what's happened, you can look at your uncategorized transactions. And this is basically a to-do list on all of the transactions that you need to categorize. The goal is to have all this uncategorized income and expenses be categorized so your budget is accurate and you know exactly where your money went each month. So one of my favorite features that I've implemented was a way to suggest a category. The Mega Market, the suggested category is groceries, so I'm just going to apply that. Save changes. For the categories, this page shows all your categories as well as the bucket and category group that it's in. So I have all the income sources here: fixed costs, variable necessities, discretionary, everything like that. All these can be edited or deleted. You can add new categories. And then we also have the institutions, which tracks your assets, your liabilities, your net worth. And since this is a demo account, all of these are under manual with random number values here. But if this is your real data, it's going to actually break it down by bank as well. I already sort of went over the weekly review process. You're basically just going to go to these uncategorized transactions and try to find a place for all these. Now, in terms of the monthly review, what I normally do is go here, I take a look at my net, what I made, put this amount minus my rollovers, and I try to put more in savings if I can handle that. So this second card here shows the real snapshot of what happened this month. The top one is just budgeting, predicting type of stuff. So at the end of the month, if I want to print out the report, it shows budgeted, actual, carryover, any variance that occurred, rollover, and just gives a good summary of your budget here. And under reports, I have more detailed breakdowns of income and expense report, where you can see the income, expenses, and where everything went really, as well as percentages per category. So you can see those. So what I would do is if I want to, I just print out these reports and try to come up with a next budget for the next month and hopefully hit my goals, hopefully save some money, cut back when necessary. So this is definitely a working process. It's not going to be a set it and forget it type thing, but I find that doing it this way makes things accurate and predictable for what's going to happen in the next few months. So this is the same system that I talked about in the video with less friction, and that's the only reason why I really use it. And I was able to sort of tailor it for me. It is definitely still a work in progress, but if you want to try it out, test it, there's a link below. You can send me some ideas how to make it better, what you like about it, what you don't like about it. I always appreciate all the feedback. So here's the full system. 1. Start with your real monthly take-home pay. 2. Break it into 5 budget buckets. 3. Track every transaction. 4. Assign each transaction to a category and build rollover categories for regular expenses. And then 5. Review it weekly so you can adjust early and close out each month to get smarter for the next one. That is the system. It's not complicated. It just has to be followed. If you want to go deeper on how to handle a variable income month to month, or build a real emergency fund, or how to pay off your debt faster using your budget, subscribe and let me know in the comments what you want to see next.